the consciousness and the cosmos, a path to one's own inner cosmos.
In assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition, a stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home.
Hello, dear listeners. My name is Katja.
My name is Arowinak.
And I am Jez. We will be hosting the program. The Consciousness and the Cosmos, radio program of Uksim, Planetary Service Center.
Practically everyone has heard of great teachers and instructors such as Buddha, Jesus, and others. As humanity, we have never been left without guidance.
Today we will speak of type of instructors and their role. For centuries we have been assisted by spiritual instructors from different ranges and levels.
What happened is that, with the state of consciousness of humanity, the easy way of saying, I did not receive education, clearly shows that beings do not understand the incarnational process.
Lo que ocurre es que con el estado de conciencia de la humanidad, el facilismo de decir yo no recibí educación, muestra claramente que los seres no entienden la concatenación encarnatoria, porque uno está viviendo lo que vive a consecuencia de cientos o de miles de encarnaciones.
One is living what one lives as a consequence of hundreds or thousands of incarnations, where one received stimuli, where one disregarded stimuli, where one opened paths and where one deviated from the path. It means that most of humanity is responsible for living what they consider unjust because they don't deserve it. So we live in a division. It's like our consciousness is in a schism. It cannot recognize that what is happening, what is living, it is the consequence of its previous decisions in hundreds or thousands of incarnations. To us, it was offered from stage to stage, from cycle to cycle in each human race, which were the great opportunities in spiritual development and in the initiatory context in which we've had to live. We rejected it and threw it all away. It is logical. We have to face that consequence at some point.
And if the being doesn't have a specific awareness of cosmic laws,
Aunque no tenga una conciencia puntual de leyes cósmicas como la ley de karma y otras leyes, él tiene una verdadera sed de abrirse, de encontrar respuestas, de buscar la verdad. Entonces su propia conciencia interna, ¿sí?, y la conciencia general del planeta le van a ofrecer en esta etapa de transición las facilidades para que, recibiendo una moratoria.
Now, if the being, even if he doesn't have a specific awareness of cosmic laws, like the law of karma and the other laws, has a real thirst to open himself to find answers and search for the truth, his inner consciousness and the general consciousness of the planet will offer him, in this transition stage, the facilities to receive a moratorium that he will have to pay. That is to say, a moratorium is not a non-payment. A moratorium is the accommodation of certain payments so that you can move forward. So in this transition, there are millions of beings of the 8 billion of us on the planet who are receiving the opportunity to be able to close in some way, in some measure, by offering us a synthesis which outside of the transition could never be offered to us, the way to direct our consciousness, to collaborate with the closing of the current planetary cycle.
ofreciéndosenos una síntesis que fuera de una transición jamás podría sernos ofrecida, ¿sí? La manera de encaminar nuestra conciencia para colaborar con el cierre del ciclo planetario actual. Pero esto es algo que cada uno va a tener que definir íntimamente, genuinamente.
But this is something that each one of us will have to define intimately, genuinely, and those who do not have a vocation for truth, who do not have an inner vocation, who do not have a genuine search to become a tool of the resolution for the evolutionary plan. Because the density that we have as consciousness is enormous. Hundreds or thousands of incarnations choose the most damaging and inadequate for this planet, which means that because we are planetary particles, we are not free. This has a cost, precisely. Rehearsing the costs is something that we go through. We rehearse under the law of karma and have to rehearse the costs of inadequate decisions with chaotic results.
So when Daniel speaks of Buddha, does he mean the presence of Buddha energy and the presence of the energy of other instructors?
Do disincarnated instructors not return to incarnate here on the planet again? Are they already on another level?
Si fuera necesario, cosa que ninguno de nosotros puede prever o evaluar, porque no tenemos ni idea de lo que es la ley de necesidad cósmicamente hablando a esa altura. Si fuera necesario, como fue necesario antes de Jesús con Buda, que también fue una entidad crística, la entidad crística actuando a través de Buda, y antes de Buda de Krishna, y antes de él Zoroastro, y antes de él una cantidad de entidades que desconocemos en realidad.
No, that is according to the law of necessity. For example, the monada, or Christic hierarchy that acted through Jesus in complementarity with the monada of Jesus is still present. It's just not incarnated. If it were necessary, none of us could foresee or evaluate it because we had no idea what the law of necessity was. Cosmically speaking, at that point, if it were necessary, as it was necessary before Jesus with Buddha, who was also a Christic entity acting through Buddha, and before Buddha with Krishna, and before with Zoroaster, and before him a number of entities that we didn't really know. But they were no less important because at each stage they established the evolutionary foundations that allowed the next stage to follow. So that they are not beings that apparently are not returning does not mean that they are not incarnated on the planet. Because for those beings to be present on the planet is practically by transitive and reflexive character to say that the whole planet serves as their body of incarnation because they never left.
Porque era un instructor mayor de lo que hoy ocurre, donde el acercamiento a una energía semejante solamente se puede dar en nuestros niveles internos. Ya no va a encarnar, no está encarnado ni va a encarnar un instructor de la talla de Jesús. El ciclo donde los instructores...
Just in that context of the Christ energy ruling, because it's a second-ray solar system and a second-ray Christ planet, symbolically speaking, if they never left, they use in a broader way that karmic field, in this case of the surface of the earth, but holistically, because every field, every single field on this planet responds to that second ray.
La jerarquía crística lo es tanto jerarquía para la superficie, para los niveles internos, para el magma central, que es otro campo kármico, aunque diferente. Entonces, ellos no necesitan reencarnar por reencarnar, pero si tienen que reencarnar, van a reencarnar todas las veces que sea necesario. Todo instructor encarnado lo hace bajo ley de necesidad.
The Christ hierarchy is for the surface, the inner levels, and the center magma, another but different karmic field. So they do not need to reincarnate for reincarnation's sake. But if they have to reincarnate, they will reincarnate as many times as necessary.
Entonces, el momento donde ese instructor brindaba esa instrucción, esa educación, la irradiación era una herramienta fundamental porque la psiquis humana no estaba en condiciones de suficiente madurez como para que se le revelaran aspectos cósmicos, tanto a nivel cósmico planetario, cósmico sistémico, cósmico extrasistémico, quiere decir aspectos mucho más profundos de las leyes.
Every incarnated instructor does so under the law of necessity. He cannot choose to incarnate or disincarnate because he is so embedded in the archetype of evolutionary assistance to that solar system and to that planet, that what his monada, his internal entity, his inner hierarchy, does is to correspond to the logoic stimuli that place him in a space-time coordinate, in this case, an incarnation and nothing more. He is taken out when necessary, and when necessary, he is thrown back into matter and is ready to go in and out as often as necessary.
During the time of Jesus, the people close to him were given a great opportunity. Similar to this planetary moment, Cosmosophy offers a profound teaching that has been present in our planet for millions of years.
It is likely that one needs to go through multiple incarnations in order to fully comprehend the teachings of Cosmosophy.
Vamos primero a sentar una base que es necesaria. No podemos hablar ni siquiera comparar la presencia de un instructor mayor, como era la energía crística a través de Jesús, porque era un instructor mayor, de lo que hoy ocurre, donde el acercamiento a una energía semejante solamente se puede dar en nuestros niveles internos. Ya no va a encarnar, no está encarnado ni va a encarnar un instructor de la talla de Jesús.
Let us first lay the necessary clarification. We cannot talk about or even compare the presence of a more excellent teacher, as was the Christ energy through Jesus, because he was a more excellent teacher, with what is happening today, where the approach to such energy can only happen on our inner levels. He is no longer going to incarnate. He is not incarnated, nor is he going to incarnate an instructor of the stature of Jesus. The cycle where the senior instructors, and we have to clarify that a type of cosmic teacher of enormous stature for those who speak of certain language, is called a senior instructor.
Entonces, instructor menor no es peyorativo, pero no es comparable un instructor menor a un instructor mayor. En este caso, el último instructor mayor que hubo en el planeta fue la energía crística a través del instructor Jesús. Entonces, vamos a partir de esa base, no es comparable. Como tampoco es comparable.
Yes, since then there have been minor instructors who have participated differently, A minor teacher is not pejorative, but a minor teacher is not comparable to a more remarkable teacher. In this case, the last major teacher of the planet was the Christ energy through the teacher Jesus. So let's start from that basis. It is not comparable, nor is it in any way comparable to the stage where the externalization of a greater teacher was needed to offer education and instruction, because spiritual instruction is education. It is the highest education that an individual can receive. So when that instructor was providing that instruction, that education, the irradiation was a fundamental tool, because the human psyche was not mature enough to have cosmic aspects revealed to it at the cosmic, planetary, cosmic, systemic, and cosmic extra-systemic levels. That is much more profound aspects of the laws, but through a greater teacher who operated as a diapason, a being who was able to enter into a unity, a vibratory resonance, accompanied by a very particular synthesis. That potent irradiation, which he
La irradiación era una herramienta fundamental porque la psiquis humana no estaba en condiciones de suficiente madurez como para que se le revelaran aspectos cósmicos, tanto a nivel cósmico planetario, cósmico sistémico, cósmico extrasistémico, quiere decir aspectos mucho más profundos de las leyes.
That potent irradiation which he emanated, which he released, Jesus, to those over whom he had a direct influence, worked on them more by irradiation than by profound revelation of aspects of the cosmic laws, because the beings were not ready. Those beings could not block, filter, or block the irradiation that Jesus emanated. It was accompanied by a pattern of verbal balance, mainly based on parables, which had intermediate energy, as we have said several times, between the dream level and waking. The parables that he used put people in a state of almost semi-dreaming. It was his irradiation when he put people in that state of receptivity. It was his irradiation that was mainly operating.
Hoy sí esos instructores menores pueden decir más de lo que dijeron esos instructores mayores. Por eso Jesús, entre una de las cosas, dijo, más que yo haréis. ¿Por qué? Porque se acercaban los tiempos donde aspectos de la revelación de las leyes podían ser colocados y expuestos a disposición de la mente racional.
Currently, those older teachers are not incarnated. Where do they operate? They operate at our monadic level, at the level of our spiritual consciousness. There they stimulate us without the limits we previously had as consciousness and humanity. On the other hand, the part that has to operate in concrete consciousness is in charge of some lesser teachers. Today, yes, those minor teachers can say more than those greater teachers said. And that is why Jesus, among one of the things he said, more than I will do. Because the times were coming when aspects of the revelation of the laws could be placed and exposed to the rational mind, because they were prepared to permeate the rational mind and the rational mind in those who were already evolutionarily ready. Evolutionarily ready could not be an obstacle to internalize that through the psychic field.
Entonces, estaba previsto que en la materia, ¿sí?, presente en la materia, tomando cuerpos en la materia, él fuera el último instructor. A partir de ahí, la conciencia, la entidad crística de la cual él formó...
So it was foreseen that he would be the ultimate teacher in matter, present in matter, taking bodies in matter. From then on, the consciousness, the Christ entity, which he was a part, was and is a part today, and will continue to be a part for very long cycles, operates directly at the monadic level of people and humanity. Because on that level, the interferences we can offer today cannot be gestated. We can reject, repulse, interfere, and deny on the personality level, that is, on the level of our psychophysical consciousness. But on the monadic level, we cannot reject anything.
Entonces, nuestra mónada, nuestra conciencia espiritual, estando en contacto con la energía crística en los niveles internos, es quien procesa actualmente de un modo directo la actividad crística y...
Our monada, the spiritual consciousness, being in contact with the Christian energy on the inner levels, is actually directly processing the Christian activity and radiating it, releasing it, and emanating it, pouring it directly into the personality to the measure of each receiver, because no message is cut with scissors and cloned for everyone in the same way. That is why Jesus put them in a state of semi-dreaming and worked with parables. In that way, the energy that made up the parable was like a wide range with nuances appropriate to each person. However, if we go to a rigid discourse, it may be helpful to some, almost nothing to others, and nothing at all to others.
We know that many teachers and spiritual beings have used parables. They have also been used in many written educational stories. They are instruments that have been used throughout the centuries. Are parables valid today?
Y trabajaba con parábolas porque de ese modo la energía que conformaba la parábola era como un amplio abanico que tenía matices adecuados, propios para cada quien.
Every tool is valid if it is promoted and sustained by energy. Energy has no preference for any particular issue. The only thing that energy can do is adapt to whatever it is, according to the law of necessity. If humanity or a group or an individual needs something in particular, and there is no more suitable tool than that, energy will use it. We insist energy has no preference for anything. We have even said that more than once, energy does not prefer us to go through the law of death or to disincarnate in a particular way.
Some people say, how did he die? He died and that's it.
El acontecimiento de morir no es ni lindo ni feo, es necesario y afortunadamente no depende de la voluntad humana, salvo excepciones donde el suicida comete la torpeza, que en algún momento la va a superar evolutivamente, de tomar la ley cósmica y la ley de karma en sus manos. ¿Sí?
The event of dying is neither beautiful nor ugly. It's necessary. Fortunately, it does not depend on the human will, except for exceptions where suicide commits the foolishness, which he will eventually overcome evolutionarily, or of taking this cosmic law and the law of karma into his own hands. But indeed, there is no better way to die for the inner life, and for the inner life, there is no better tool than the necessary one. So the cosmos is pure synthesis, and energy is able to administer in the highest way any question as long as the law of necessity demands it.
How do arrogance and lack of humility affect one individual?
We have observed that some teachers and spiritual guides struggle to overcome these traits, which can be seen as a form of spiritual ego.
Si la persona está en una etapa de soberbia, podríamos decir que sus posibilidades en una transición son muy escasas. Porque trascender de la noche a la mañana o en un ciclo muy acotado la soberbia es prácticamente un milagro para el ego.
If the person is in a stage of pride, we could say their chances in transition are very limited, because transcending pride overnight or in a very short cycle is practically a miracle for the ego. Because the ego can spend dozens of incarnations going through situations where pride, that egotistical sense, that pseudo-superiority, that it believes it has self-importance and arrogance, can take a very long time. It may be that someone who has already been doing that work for several incarnations could close it in this incarnation. Generally speaking, it is not that easy. So it does not mean that a being who does not yet have an installed and genuine process of humility is, therefore, a lost arrogant, because under the law of karma, everything is tested gradually.
Entonces la humildad es la energía que se gana, que se implanta, en la cual nos vamos sumergiendo y que nos permite romper el espejismo de creernos tan grandes y poderosos. La humildad realmente es la medida de la comprensión que cada ser tenga como partícula cósmica.
A being does not have to be defined as tremendous or arrogant because he does not have the sense of energy, of humility, sufficiently implanted. Let us remember that the energy of humility is the capacity that a being has to understand and live his dimension on a cosmic level. Humility is the energy gained, implanted, and immersed in which we immerse ourselves, allowing us to break the illusion of believing ourselves to be great and powerful. Humility is the measure of each being's understanding as a cosmic particle.
What are we in a macrocosmic context? It means we are in the cosmic one context, which is the little ego. This little personality, and even more our spiritual consciousness, which for us as an ego and personality is the highest, which is in immediate terms we can tune into and recognize. But in cosmic terms, it is a small particle in evolution. So a being who has managed to close and harmonize the experience of humility sufficiently is not necessarily terribly proud. We have to see, and we will have to work on our little evolutionary and psychic obstacles in this sense.